And one of the barriers that I also love bringing up is that when we start to change, it becomes very uncomfortable for the people around us. And that I find to be the most fascinating thing to observe, because as women are changing, there's a discomfort that's occurring in the world. And we're shaking things up, and it has to happen on the individual level. And with the Ayurvedic tools, we have the ability to create that change collectively. We can all go and practice yoga and not make it a thing that we do for exercise, although it does have benefits in that way. But we do it collectively because we want to make a change in the world, and we want to start living more in harmony with who we are. And so this is why it's good to have a group of women together, because we can support each other through this change that we experience.
Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. My co-host Robin and I take great joy and delight in week after week talking to women, showcasing the impact they are creating, and also talking about how other women are lifting them up, how they are impacting the lives of women, and together as women, how we truly build a meaningful life that is working for us. Because we are, after all, living in a masculine constructed world with the stories and constructs that are created in the interest of what that society envisioned. And we need to look at what's best for us and together build a world that behooves us so that we can thrive, our families can thrive, and there is a beautiful future. Research shows, and United Nations strategic goals show, that when women are empowered and women get to engage in their own economic and social well-being, the bottom line impact to the world is $7 trillion. There is impact economically here. And after all, every day, $1 billion worth of work is done by women for free, day after day after day, tirelessly. How do we make time for us? How do we pour into ourselves? How do we take care of our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being? And from that place of wellness, how do we show up for us, our loved ones, and our society? That is going to be the theme of today's conversation. You're going to absolutely love our guest today. I am honored to say that she's a friend, somebody who understands and comes from my tradition, my culture, but who also, like me, understands and embraces the Western life, the Western tradition, and has figured out how, from a medical pathology and wellness perspective, balance the two, take the goodness in each and build a life, because it doesn't have to be black or white. How do we play in the gray? And how do we make our wellness with the Ayurvedic lifestyle and Ayurvedic tradition that includes yoga, meditation, how what we eat sustains us, those concepts into our Western lifestyle? Please welcome Amita Nathwani to Women Investing in Women.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for having me today.
Our pleasure, Amita. So as we get started, the question I have for you to set up this conversation is, how does the Ayurvedic lifestyle that focuses on our energy, our being, and our presence from a holistic perspective, how is that complementing the Western medical thinking? And as you are in the classroom, working with Western medical students and Western medical professionals, how is the integration of the two creating a more wellness-conscious future for us?
You know, it's probably one of the best questions I've ever heard, because this is fundamentally the basis of Ayurveda. And that is that when we start to learn about true medicine, the first thing that we need to do is inherently learn what that means for ourselves. And one of the things that's changing in today's society and in today's Western medical model is that physicians and healthcare providers are understanding the value of self-care and what that means to help others. And so for me at this point in time, what I'm finding more and more is when I bring concepts of Ayurveda into academia and understanding, as you said, pathology and lifestyle, we get to actually relate it to ourselves, our own life, our own families. And it's only through that self-experience, which truly Ayurveda is, that then we can really go out into the world and help others. It's building that empathy and compassion internally and first knowing who we are. And it's from that place, then we can start to understand others. And it may seem a little over esoteric at times, but the practical application of it really comes down to having the ability to be able to see the value in how it is that we can take these lifestyle medicine approaches, how we can use botanicals and the concepts of Ayurveda as a whole in an umbrella, and see the evidence-based research that's come from it and how it actually works effectively in ourselves and in our patients.
You know, I'm absolutely loving the introduction to this conversation because it aligns completely with the mission of this show, Women Investing in Women. And there is so much talk now about women having self-care, paying attention to how you're feeling, pay attention to what's going on with you as you go about helping and serving and being of worth to other people. I shouldn't say being of worth, but doing good for other people. And so can you tell us what has been your observations with bringing this whole notion of self-care and paying attention to yourself to the women that you come across in your audiences?
Yes, I think, fundamentally, I think it's permission first. That's a really big component. And that permission can only come from a really deep understanding that it is okay that we are considered part of society. There's this concept and this idea that we have as women sometimes that we are here to perform or do or be in service to others. This is a very common theme, especially for me in my culture, and I'm sure for many cultures. And one of the things that happens is that when we step into that position of service, whether we're parents or wives or sisters or daughters or healthcare providers or whatever we do in the world, we forget that actually the service needs to start with us first. And that permission, that allowance is one of the biggest components that I think I come up against quite a bit, because how can we take care of ourselves? How can we do this if there's so much work to do in the world? And, the cliche statements of everything starts with you first. It's only through yourself that you can make change in the world. But that practical application of it becomes so complex when we have so many responsibilities. And so one of the things that I really like to do is just break down. What is it that Ayurveda gives us? What are the tools that we have as women that we can use day to day that doesn't take away from our mission of serving and doing the work that we want to do, but simultaneously fills us up so much that our cup is full and it overflows and becomes compassion rather than trying to, get water from an empty well that has not really been nourished or replenished. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it is, fundamentally that permission is the first thing we need to have.
Mm-hmm. The permission also then allows us to build a life that is healing as opposed to resentment. Because that's the one thing I have always been conscious of. Even when my husband proposed to me to get married, one of the fundamental conversations I had is, how are we going to build a life where I don't have to fall into resentment, Because even in the West, the role of a woman, even if you're a Korean woman, is still caregiving and caring and nurturing, and that doesn't go away. And you got to do everything and be able to juggle and skip rope and, spin the kitchen sink. That's what a woman's role is. And when we understand that, and we have this mental image that when the oxygen masks fall, put the mask on you first so that you can help everybody else that you love and you need to care for. They're good reminders. But the Ayurvedic lifestyle allows us to combine the physical, the energy, the mental, and the spiritual all together. And I interpret Ayurveda literally by translating Ayur means life, and Veda means philosophy. It literally means life philosophy for a fulfilling, healing life of peace and contentment. And how are you able to bring that into the Western world where everything is action and results? And a lot of this is breathe. Get one as an alignment with the energy around you. And to the Western eye, it might be you're asking me to do nothing.
This is a great question. It's the biggest piece of what Ayurveda really stands for, and that is that we have to address ourselves. We talk about it. It's an individual approach to health, but what does that really mean, right? And so it means getting to know yourself on such a level that you know what it is that works for you and what doesn't work for you, not necessarily for a result, but for your true self-being. 1/3 of the population are not morning people. And there is this push. Everyone must get up very early to rise, early to bed. Even Ayurveda has these beautiful concepts of if you wake with the sun and the rays of the sun, the value it has on you. But one of the things that Ayurveda also teaches is that we have to honor our bodies and physiologies. We can't just push ourselves into the do's and the do-nots. I used to do that a lot when I first started Ayurveda, because there are these concepts of, okay, wake up, do your meditation, do your pranayam, do self-oil massage, yoga, asana, then you eat at this time, digestion works better at noon. We were following these concepts, but it wasn't taking into consideration all of the other factors that may occur in life that actually lead to this. And I like to give this example because it hit home for me. I was living a life of do and do not. And then about 12 years ago, my husband suddenly died in a car accident. And it was from that moment onward that I realized, how was I going to upkeep that same do and do not lifestyle when I was going through a grieving process, when I had to get to know myself in a completely different way? And although I had the tools of Ayurveda, I had to give myself the grace to follow the principles of Ayurveda, but I was allowed to break the rules. And this was really important, because if we don't do that, we're not honoring who we are and where we are in life. And we start to build, as you said, resentment, but it doesn't always, the resentment may not be toward a particular person, but the resentment happens in life. Like, how is it that this isn't working for me? Why am I not able to accomplish this? But if we're truly in alignment with ourselves, and this is what Ayurveda really teaches, get truly aligned with who you are and what you like. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what anybody says. Doesn't matter what society says. If you are not a morning person, don't be a morning person. If you prefer not having your biggest meal at noon because it makes you feel better to have it in the evening, then honor these things. Just understand the principles on why that might be the case. If you want to do your yoga asanas in the morning, or in the evening or before bed, of course, there are the concepts of why we do the things we do, when we do them, how can better facilitate sleep and life and general well-being and low stress. But we also don't need to create the extra stress just to try to get there. And this is where I really start to bring in these concepts, because in India, where Ayurveda originated, it's not hard to grasp these ideas of yoga and meditation and pranayama, they're integrated as a part of our culture. Here in the West, it's become things that we do have on our checkoff list. Okay, great. Did pranayama? Check. Did yoga asanas? Check. And these, when we do it in that fashion, it's like we are trying to get somewhere and accomplish something, but really we do it to help ourselves so that we could be at greater peace with who we are. That's the point of life. That is the point of all of this. And, just a quick story reminds me of my meditation teacher told a story that when he was young, he went to his meditation teacher solely for the purpose of, he heard that if he did this meditation, his migraines would go away. And he showed up at his teacher's doorstep and said, I'm here so my migraines can go away. And his teacher laughed at him so hard. And he said, oh, yeah. We can do that. But that's not really why you're here. You're here to get to know yourself. And it was from that moment that his understanding of himself and his unfoldment into who he was really flourished. So we will get the health benefits of it, but our intention has to start with self-healing, not for the accomplishment of something that we're going toward.
I'm absolutely loving everything that you're saying. And it almost makes me think when I hear about, these systems of rules, which I don't disagree with having systems of rules, and but the notion that the rules didn't just spring up out of nothing. There was the principles behind them and then guidelines around them. And I'm loving this notion that we need to understand the principles, and sometimes we have to break the rules in order to follow the principle behind it more fully to bring about this healing and this health in our lives. And I totally, in fact, for a second there when you were talking, I was thinking, did a man design this program of you have to do this and you have to eat at this time? You're just like, okay, has he had a nursing baby or a baby with a poopy diaper that needs to get changed right now? And so I'm really loving this notion that there are rules, there's guidelines, and then there's the principles behind them. So what do you find in your work with women gets in the way of being able to kind of buy into this and feel like, okay, my life could still go well and might even go better if I am aligning myself with principles as opposed to just checking off a bunch of boxes?
So you're asking what some of the barriers might be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes down to, it could be because this is more of a male dominant society, but if we as women take a step back and we focus on self-healing, it's almost like we're out of the race, it feels like, you know what I mean? And we end up thinking, well, I can't just sit back and do this. I also need to, I'm a part of society. I'm a part of change. I'm a part of the conversation. I have a seat at the table. And so the barrier becomes that we sometimes don't recognize within ourselves that we can have both. We can do both. And in fact, we can do them so much more effectively when we really start to align ourselves with the way in which we know is right for us, our body, our mind, and our spirit. And it's again, a very cliche thing, you follow your path and you will succeed, but that doesn't mean you just sit back and wait for things to happen. It's from that place that we women have of grace and the ability to see the big picture. We have a role in society that comes from a place of true feminine power where we are so understanding and compassionate and we don't have our blinders on. We have a full breath and a full view of what it is that we want to see as change in the world. And we have to tap into that first. And so I think one of the barriers is, well, if I spend my mornings just spending it by myself, just relaxing or being with the self and doing self-care, then what is that going to mean for my work? Am I really going to be able to get out there and do it? And I think one of the things that we as women need to start doing is changing the way that we see work, changing the way that we see how it is that we're getting out there to go do it. We have the ability to change the conversation now on how can we have a more holistic perspective on life. What a concept, right? This is what we preach, we talk about, but we collectively get to change this. We all get to say it's critical, it's important that we have this time to do our self-care. And it's not a checkoff. It is an actual taking the time I'm going to check in with myself and see what needs to happen. Being able to say so much more often, let me think about that. Or no. Or that's too many things on my plate. It takes away from the things that I really want to accomplish for myself, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And then in turn, it can help us have better health. So I think we all just collectively, and it's happening. We're having the conversation right now. The fact that I've been invited to speak about this shows how much we have changed and grown and evolved, where women are now starting to say, we're not in a race with men. We need to change the way that we do things inherently so we can show up better.
It also is going to help us set boundaries for ourselves and for the others, because we have the opportunity to choose what's in my interest. And there's so often self-care is interpreted as I go get my hair done, I go get my nails done, I go to a spa, I have a girls' evening out. It's truly more than that. What am I doing to heal myself, knowing that I'm a physical being with energy, with a psychological and spiritual wellness component? So holistically, what do I need? When do I hit the pause button, and when do I heal? When do I replenish? And so the way I practice this, when my husband got cancer and got Lewy body dementia, I moved us to the Caribbean. Because what I decided is I'm going to do remote work because my work could be done that way with COVID. And then I start my day with gardening. So I grow my own food. That's part of my self-care. I get the sun, I get the activity, I'm growing the food. And I cook what I grow, or I cook what my neighbors grow. And we're eating garden to table. And even when we're eating, we're not taking spices out of the bottle. I have fresh ginger, fresh garlic. In the United States, we sell turmeric pills. People drink ginger shots and turmeric shots, but nobody is thinking, can these be absorbed by my human body? Or what else needs to accompany this for my body to absorb it? Because the Western mind doesn't compute those things. It's not cultural. There's a reason why we have all these spice powders. I have a bottle where there is turmeric, fenugreek, and black pepper mixed together, because whenever I'm putting turmeric, those three go in, because our body needs to have all three for the cells to absorb the value of turmeric and get the benefit of it. Talk to us a little bit about how do we go beyond the checklist and truly understand and immerse into the why, so that we find the benefits of it and heal by just from the state of being.
Yeah, so one of the big things, again, in Ayurveda, we do encourage individuals to get to know who they are. And of course, this is a lifelong journey. So, in a podcast today, unfortunately, I wish that I could help everybody understand that and have that, those tools readily available. But what we do have in Ayurveda are great understandings of our physical, emotional, and mental makeup. So even though Ayurveda does say that there are these three constitutions that we can find ourselves in, and understanding those, this is how we can really start to build on what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And these are called the doshas. So that would be the first step I would encourage anyone to do. And it doesn't mean to pigeonhole yourself and say, I am this and I am that, therefore I need to do this. We get back to the checklist again. But if you are ever interested, you can look up what is my constitution, what is my Ayurvedic constitution. And then it unfolds a deepened understanding of our tendencies. And the practical applications of it, like I love your example of growing your own food and knowing, like saying, I'm going to work remotely now because this is important to me. This is this prioritization that you have made for yourself. And in the same vein with food, again, it's that permission piece, right? You gave yourself permission to move. You gave yourself permission to say, I'm going to grow my own garden and I'm going to create that life that supports the lifestyle that I would like to have. And so even in the same vein, for me personally, I love to cook, but I don't love eating all the food that I cook. It's not right for my constitution. So I will cook Indian food, I'll cook American food, I cook all kinds of things, and I have people come over and I love to nourish them, but you will not always find that on my plate. I am very clear about what I need for my constitution, and there are no apologies around it. My plate might look very different than everybody else's, because that is the food that I choose to eat for me, because I have prioritized myself and who I am and what I know I'm going to feel like the next day. I know how my stomach's going to feel. I know what my bowel movements are going to look like. I have gotten to know and understand and respect myself so that I will honor the things that I need to do. And that's one of the things that we can start doing. The same thing goes with exercise. Sometimes I will throw out a yoga mat and I will just sit on it in the morning and drink coffee. And guess what? I honored myself on that day. That is true self-care right there. I just didn't move, and then 20 minutes later I get up, and I consider that the best yoga asana practice I have ever done, because what I did was I was truly in line with mind, body, and spirit, and that's what yoga is. And so it really comes down to making sure that you prioritize what it is that you want in life. And Ayurveda will give you those tools, but you have to get to know yourself first to understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I once had a patient who came to me and said, I learned all the 8 pranayams, and I decided to mix 2 different pranayams together, and I do this, and it makes me feel really good. And of course, my initial instinct was, but they go against each other, and should one do this together? Should one? And finally, I just said, fantastic. How wonderful that you have found something that works for you, that you really enjoy doing. Let's not let anybody tell you who you should be and how you should go about living the life that you want to live. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but these are the ways. And Dr. Cass, you are such a great example of showing that you uprooted your whole life. That's a massive change. And I don't ask that of everybody. We can't all just move and go somewhere else and build that life, overnight. But we can make those small changes every single day. And one of the barriers that I also love bringing up is that when we start to change, it becomes very uncomfortable for the people around us. And that I find to be the most fascinating thing to observe, because as women are changing, there's a discomfort that's occurring in the world, and we're shaking things up, and it has to happen on the individual level. And with the Ayurvedic tools, we have the ability to create that change collectively. We can all go and practice yoga and not make it a thing that we do for exercise, although it does have benefits in that way. But we do it collectively because we want to make a change in the world, and we want to start living more in harmony with who we are. And so this is why it's good to have a group of women together, because we can support each other through this change that we experience.
I'm absolutely loving this phrase, as women are changing, that the world becomes, there's discomfort in the world until we get accustomed to the new world. I'm really loving that. And as we say with every guest, the time flies right by. And so as this 25 minutes is drawing to a close, we would absolutely love people to know how they can get a hold of you. And also, do you have you're giving us so many nuggets throughout the entire conversation. Is there one final golden nugget or two that you would like to share with our audience?
I think one of the most important things when I talk about Ayurveda is don't be afraid to experiment with these old systems of health. When we learn about something that comes to us, let's discover it for yourself. It's a new thing. Make it your own. And I wrote a book actually called Breaking the Rules Without Breaking the Principles, an clinical Ayurvedic approach to health. And in there, it's all the principles laid out, but then how you get to create it however you want to create it based on who you are. And if you're interested, the book's available everywhere and on my website, Amita Ayurveda. And there I also have some articles that I've written about how to have better self-care and understand ourselves, and to make sure that we are honoring who we are and the path that we walk in life.
Thank you so much, Amita. This has been an amazing conversation. Robin and I have been absolutely delighted to hear your thoughts, your wisdom, your guidance. And we appreciate you making the time. We appreciate the insights you have shared. And we know the women around the world while listening to this are going to benefit from this. So we thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. And for the audience out there, you heard the thrust of the message. This is about you finding the best way to live harmoniously in your place of peace. This is not going out there accomplishing things and showing things to the world, but this is your inner peace. This is your inner healing. This is how you find, through grace, your place. And when you are in your place of residence, everything else will fall into place. Because life happens and falls into place for people who are happy and who are in their place of peace. If you give up all of that to get to a point, when you get there, it'll be empty. So take a moment and invest in your own self. Look at self-care from a very holistic perspective, because when you do that for yourself, you're setting boundaries, you're giving yourself permission, but you're also transforming those around you. Because the men in your life, the children in your life, the others in your life will start respecting and honoring, and they may start embracing some of it themselves for their own peace and harmony. So make this goodness and wellness contagious. Don't do it as a task. It is not a checklist. It is the very essence of who you are and how your life is going to evolve.